Hi, today we are going to look at how to go from an initial project that looks like this as soon as we have created it with Unity Hub to something, let me move this to the left, that is something I really like, and move also maybe the console here so you have space to look at the messages. And we want to create folders that follow certain standards and that we know are going to be useful to us the way we approach creating our third-person character controller game. So, as you can see, there is in Tools a sub menu called Setup and then a subset menu called Create Default Folder, but I'm not yet clicking it. Okay. What I'm going to show you is that we have one folder already created called Editor. It has to be spelled exactly like this with capital E and so on. And inside we have this Menu Tools folder. File is a C# script. I can double click on it. And as you can see, it opens in Visual Studio and it shows me the code, right? So it has a certain namespace, and then the class is called Menu Tools. And there's a public method called create folders. As you can see, what it does, it calls create directories, that is defined in here. So create directory takes one parameter for sure, is a string, that is the root, and then basically an array of strings, okay, like in this case, but it's optional, right? Like look at the second one, only has the first part, right? So the root, string root, doesn't have anything after the first parameter. That means this array is basically empty. So that's perfectly fine. So what does it mean? Well, it will create a project and then these subdirectories underneath. And then another directory parallel to _project called external. So let's see if that is true. We can go back to our Unity and we say Tools, Setup, Create Default Folder, and there you go, it creates them. So as you can see, there is, besides Editor that was already there because we needed it for the menu, right, to appear, it created folder and external. External is just that alone, right? As you can see, is external just alone, is a root but alone. And then project instead has all the subdirectories. And in fact, that's exactly what we see. Project has all the subdirectories and even subset directories. Notice that prefabs and resources are resources a sub-subdirectory in a way. That's how we could call it. And in fact, we do it this way, right? I mean, we could have also said do it some other way, but this is probably the fastest, cleanest way of doing it. So two roots, _project and external, and some subdirectories, including a sub-subdirectory in projects. What is remarkable about this? Well, because it is, using the menus essentially, right? It is adding a command to the menu of the Unity IDE itself. So how do we specify this? Well, it is Tools, Setup, and then Create Default Folder. So let's go and see it. Tools, Setup, Create Default Folders. Alright, so that's why it does that, because we are specifying it using this menu item attribute, right? This is similar to like when we say serialized field or stuff like that, but this applies to the function, right? Pretty much these functions, you can read what they do, but they are pretty, intuitive, like combine stitches the data path to the root. So what is the data path? The data path is literally on the hard drive where it is. Let me show you. If you go to Assets and you say Show in Explorer, guess what? Data path is this. C:/user/usv/gpp blah blah blah, right? this is what data path is equal to. So because we want to create it in there, then we have also always to sort of specify that the stuff we add, like underscore project, starts from C:, users, USB, blah, blah, and so on. And then we create it. And then we create also all the subdirectories from this full path, right? So we create full path itself plus full path plus the subdirectories, one at a time. And that's it, right? There's not much to it. That's how, of course, we need some packages. Notice that instead of Unity engine, we have Unity editor. Again, this isn't a component. Notice that the class doesn't derive from mono behavior, right? This is a menu command that we are adding to the Unity IDE. This is very useful to make also, if you want to add other menus, whether they are tools or something else, that's how you do it. Using Unity editors, and then you have to have a menu item, and then, develop the code. Of course, you may need stuff to be able to access, data path and these functions, create directory, and so on, combine. Well, you just learn them. And pretty much that concludes our journey on how to create all the folders that we will need. So for instance, we have project, and with animation, crosshairs, we'll have the icons, the images for the crosshairs to aim, essentially. Materials, of course. Then we have prefabs, and then we have a special folder called resources that when you put something under resources, like here, we are able to load it at runtime. Basically, we can sort of add, get references to the objects in here at runtime. Basically, from the scene, we can give a peek to what's in the project, right? But only to those things that are in resources. And because it happens that what we put is also prefab, then is also under prefabs. Then, of course, scene scripts, and SO is for scriptable objects. And external, it will be for packages that we add, because, of course, Unity by default comes with a bunch of packages, right? Very good. But we also install our own. For instance, I don't know, we want to install Cinemachine, we want to install Scivolo, that is a package that implements foundations for building a third-person character controller. All the packages that we need, we place them here, essentially external, and the reason is we want to create special compilation directives for these so that they are separated from the one in the project. And the reason why it's a good thing is because each folder that has its own compilation directive, its own assembly definition, if one file in that folder changes, all the files, all the scripts get recompiled. So it's a good thing to place all the plugins essentially in external and have together with their own assembly definition. And then we have our own assembly definition in projects where we have only our own scripts. So, of course, if our scripts change, we have to recompile and build a new library, but at least we don't have to recompile all the plugins as well. And since the plugins may occupy quite a bit of space, and on a real project, you may have dozens of plugins. So, if every time we modify even just one line of code in our code, we have to recompile all our files, that's fine, but also all the plugins, that becomes very painful, right? And that's what also makes Unity feel a little sluggish. By doing it this way, you only have recompile essentially your own files. It usually is, a subset of all the files. If you have many plugins, it's probably like 10% of the code is yours and 90% is the plugins. So it's a big win. Other than that, I think we are done with the explanations on how to initialize the folders, how to create the menu that does that. By the way, don't fear doing twice. It's fine. If they're already there, nothing happens, okay? And that's it for today. Thank you.